G'day folks. So the issue I'm looking at today is your date of birth and just what that might mean. And I want to point out to you something that I think you probably aren't aware of, and that a gentleman named Romley Stewart has, I would say, has become aware of and has proven by the documents he has. And we'll have a look at that in a little while. There's about 5 minutes of an excerpt from a video he did on this issue. But I want to point out to you that on your birth certificate, the standard birth certificate extract that most people get, there's 2 dates. Well, there's probably 3 dates, in fact. But 2 dates we're going to focus on. One is the what most people refer to as their date of birth. I'm going to refer to that as the date that you first drew breath and the date of the event, because that is the date of an event that's been recorded. Now, the actual date of recording the event is the date of registration that's on the birth certificate, which is a distinct and separate date to the date of the event. And I think this is a key, and Romley Stewart's been able to, I think, prove it's a key, but just by the document he was able to get his hands on. So we'll take a quick look at that, and then we'll have a bit of a talk afterwards about why this is important. Let's have a look.
So back to our story. You walk into the court. Say, sir, you walk into the courthouse at the counter downstairs, wherever it is, and so I'd like to apply for a birth certificate. And I said, yes, by all means. We're going to need your name and your date of birth. And this is where it all starts. I say, what's your name? And you'll say, my name is John Henry Doe, which is really the Christian name and your surname attached as one name. That's what you will say. So they say, yes, no worries. Then you will say, they will ask you for your date of birth. So you will make another error and you will say, my date of birth is the date I was born. They say, yes, not a problem. So when you give the full name that included your surname or your last name, and you gave the date of birth that included your date of born, they give you this document here, which is called the State Birth Certificate. And you will walk out with that, and you'll take that around to the bank and say, look, I got my certificate. And they will know exactly what to do with that certificate. Because the information on this certificate gets this certificate. Now, when I went in and applied for my birth certificate, I did the same thing. I walked in happy as ever. Hello, how are you? To the girls at the court. And they said, yes, what can we do for you? And I said, I would like to apply for a birth certificate. And they said, well, we're going to need your name and your date of birth. And I said, yeah, no worries. So they said, well, what's your name? And I gave my name. That is on the birth certificate, the state birth certificate. It says here, in this case, this is William Vaughan Izard, if he gave his full name. But on the birth certificate, and on yours, and on everybody's birth certificate, the only name that exists on this is William Vaughan, which is John Henry, the Christian name only. It is no surname attached to that name there. The surname is attached to your father and your mother. They have surnames, but you don't. So remember that. This is the evidence that your name is only, in this case, William Vaughan. In my case, Romley Stewart. In the general trend, John Henry, not Doe. The John Henry name is there. So that's something that you've got to think about when you give your full name. Because if you give your full name as John Henry Doe, they will give you this. So I gave my full name. Would you like my full name? They said, yeah. I said, yes. They said, yes, we want your full name. I said, my full name is exactly what's on the birth certificate here, Romley Stewart. I did not enter the John Henry Doe, I just entered the John Henry. So they didn't do anything, they just, yep, have you got a date of birth? Now, it's very interesting because the word date is the key to this scam. Because the birth is the creation of an office, the birth of an office, or the birthing of a ship, the birthing of a corporate entity, the birthing of a corporation, an entity of some kind, an organisation. The date that is birthed, the date of registration of that, is the date of birth. So the word date refers to the date of the acknowledgement of the deed, and not the day the thing itself was created. So where you would have given your full name as John Henry Doe and your date of birth as the date you were born, I gave the Christian name and the date that it was registered up here. See that? That's the date of registration. That's the date that this certificate was stamped and entered into the court. On the certificate of birth, it has this information because it has in this box up the top here, name, which is the full name of the child, which is William Vaughan, the date he was born on the 22nd of April in 1953. But down here it says the date of registration, which in this case it was 8th of May 1953. So it was around a month after, a little over 1 month after, where this certificate, in his case, they created the proper certificate of birth. So on your birth certificate, your state birth certificate, it provides the information of your name, which is your full name, which is only your Christian name. It provides the date you were born, but it also provides the date of registration. The date of registration is the date of birth.
So folks, I find that fairly compelling because frankly Romley has obtained a document that I've never seen before in my life, and I don't know anyone else who has seen such a document. So what he's got there is the first document he is referring to, which isn't his, is a birth certificate, the standard document everyone would have. The second document is a certificate of birth. Slight change in the name, but quite a big change in what's evidenced in the document. And as he has declared and testified, he gave his Christian name only, so the John Henry, when he was asked for his full name, and he gave the date of registration that's on the standard birth certificate as his date of birth. So not the date of the event, not the date he first drew breath, but the date on which the event was registered. And with that information, he obtained a different document than you would normally get. And if you have a look at that video, and I'll put a link into it, it's quite interesting, some of the other information on it. It's quite a lengthy video though. I've probably picked the best bit out of it, but he gives a little bit more information about what's on the document, and it seems quite revealing. And I'm just interested that such a document exists. It sort of gives the proof that there is something going on with the birth certificate, and that in all likelihood it is setting up trusts, who knows how many, and that we have been duped through the use of the surname to identify ourselves as a trust. So I'm just going to touch on some of the definitions of date. I'll try and go quickly. This one's from Anderson's Law Dictionary. Date, the time when an instrument was made, acknowledged, delivered or recorded. So the date of birth of the document is the date of record, not the date of the event. That's Anderson's. What else do we have here? We'll have a quick look at Ballantyne's. Date. The date of a written instrument means its execution. The word is frequently used to designate the actual time when an event takes place, but as applied to written instruments, its primary signification is the time specified therein. So whilst date often is used to refer to the date of an event, here, when it comes to an instrument, it refers to the date of the instrument, not the date of the event recorded in the instrument. The date of a deed is not the time when it was actually executed, but the time of its execution, as given or stated in the deed itself. So if the deed said it was executed on a particular date, and the fact is that in the real world it was executed on a different date, it doesn't matter what the real world execution date was. What matters is what the document states was the execution date. And just a French term there, date certain, the date of the recording of an instrument. Bouvier's date, the designation or indication in an instrument of writing when and where it was made. And further down, as refers to deeds, the presumption of law is that the deed was dated on the day it bears date. Bit of doublespeak there, but we should be getting used to that from the legal fraternity now. But I would suggest that what that is clear, well, not clearly saying, but what it's saying, they don't say anything clearly. The presumption of law is that the deed was dated on the day it bears date. So the date of the deed, which would be the date of registration, is the date that is relevant. Okay, that'll do. He had blacks up there on there, and I won't do blacks because it's basically the same sort of stuff. So I just wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out that from my own experience, when you're incorporating a company, the certificate of incorporation is the birth certificate of a company. But the actual execution of the company documents would normally happen sometime after the date of the birth of the company. Because what happens with a company is that the registration is completed and the certificate of incorporation is issued, and it bears the registration or birth date of the company. However, there are other documents that need to be completed to finish the execution of the company's formation, and they normally need to be mailed. Well, in this day and age often they're emailed, and then the people who need to be signing those documents need to be gotten in to sign them. So back in the day, there could be 2 to 3 weeks between ordering a company and its registration or birth date and getting people in to sign the documents that execute the company, which is complete the process of its formation. So just a bit of evidence there that there's a difference between the registration date and the execution date. So there's probably more I could say, but I think that's probably enough. Go and watch Romley's video if you'd like to see a little bit more on that. I think the key there is the prover of that is that he has the document, and I don't know anyone else who's gotten that document. So that to me is the most effective evidence of what he's claiming about the date and what is the correct date of birth. And the date of birth doesn't mean the date of the event, it means the date of registration. All right, I'll leave it there, folks. See ya.